Excuse me. I have to fan myself off. It's just, I'm just a bit overheated is all. I'm just a bit overheated from all the heat going on. Oh my goodness. Sea to shining sea. Heat left to right. I hope it didn't just injure my back again. What's up, everybody? I'm Book of Katherine, and I hope you had an amazing November 6th, because let me tell you, we had the highest voter turnout on a midterm year. Last time we had a highest voter turnout was on 2016. That was during a presidential year. What did I say in my original GOP video? What did I say in my very original Clean the GOP video? Watch it right here. What did I say? I said during midterms, voter turnout is always this big because ain't nobody care about midterms. No one cares about midterms. And we had the highest voter turnout. And you guys are doing what? What are you guys doing? Before I tell you what you're doing, let me just give up props to my little fan right here from 1907. At least that's the earliest thing it says. It turns out on the back of fans, if you buy them at your thrift shops or your little places, that's where I got mine. If you buy it at an antique shop, people used to actually write on the back of them, like what year they like the ball that they went to and the year that was on it. And the earliest date on this, it's really, I tried already earlier to like show you guys on camera. It's like written really, really, really small and fine, whatever, and stuff like that. And it says 1907. And I was like, this American fan, I called it a flag in my earlier video, but I'm retaping it. So I called it American flag. This American fan was back from 1907, and I thought it would be rather appropriate to use a piece of American history to celebrate the first time Clean the GOP showed up all together in all 50 states for the first time, not on separate different dates, not in August, not in June, not in May, but all at one time. And didn't you notice? Did you feel divided? Did you look around yourself and go, ooh, we're so divided. We want to break each other up. Did you feel that way, or were you paying attention to the matrix that Zoe Quinn and her friends make? Are you paying attention to that matrix? Because if you watch that story that I posted to you, who does Crash Override Networks work with? Who does Twitter work with in those hate networks? Who? If those people don't go down, if the companies they join together with don't go down like the hate network asked them to for Twitter, who do they go to? They go to the media who works with them. And the media writes the stories and works with Twitter. And the media says, how often has the media said, oh, there are this many people on Twitter? Oh, that's right. All the time. That's how James Gunn, pedophilia and baby eater, ended up getting to direct a movie again. Go ahead and read. How the heck did DC Comics decide to hire him back after finally Disney dropped him? Go ahead and read the article. A Twitter campaign started up and said, oh, please don't fire him for those pedophilic tweets. For a third of his Twitter account being pedophilic tweets? Tell me, how did magically a Twitter campaign fighting for a pedophile appear that helped James Gunn, Hollywood's favorite director, that wrote a third of his account things about killing and eating babies and having sex with them? Right, because This America wrote tweets saying, we want that guy hired again. Right. No, they work together. And then all of a sudden, I watched all these people go through, I watched all these people do videos going, you just can't trust the media. You just can't trust the media. Once again, they go out into the real world and they go, you can't trust the media. You can't trust the media. You can't trust. And then boom, day after the elections, and everyone's like, ah, because they're watching the media. Despite the fact that I told you after every single primary, I said they're not going to publish the real results. Like, remember that? After every single primary, I said they're not going to say who won the primaries. Do you remember that? I said they're not going to say who won the primaries. Do you remember when I said that? And then who was on your ballots? Was it who they said in all of those stories? Who was on your ballots? Who was on your ballots? Who was on your ballots? Was it, let me see, the 1 to 4 freedom fighters versus incumbents? Who is on your ballots? Does my research match up with the real world and what you're experiencing on your physical ballots and in the lines that you've experienced at the voter poll? My research matching up with that, with Cheryl Atkinson and all those sorts of things? Or is the media matching up with the real world? Is that what's matching up with the real world? Oh, anyway, so I wanted to share something I found with you on November 6th, right in the very, very evening. Hold on a minute. So I found it on that very, very night, and I don't know how I missed this. I don't know how I missed it, but I was like, this is huge. This is so, so huge. And explain to me why there was all this work. Oh, and by the way, before I move on to that next part, make sure you go and see your person that you like voted for. Make sure you all go see your people, like, and see, because they're probably packing up and everything like that. You need to go in and see. And if they didn't make it, like, go ahead and, console them and everything like that. But go and contact them personally and call them up and find out, because let me promise you, the special interests are like, ignore like what you're seeing in the media, call them yourselves and find out, call them up, call up who is on your ballot and be like, here's what I'm interested in seeing. Here's what you have to start laying the groundwork of that foundation. I told you that after every single primaries, in all the primaries, I was like, make contact. You guys, you have to be in contact. Remember the Overlords video with John Stossel? They go off to DC or they go up to their state legislature. And what happens is the special interests get in their ear. And when the special interests get in their ear, it overrides, and they start as normal people. All of them start as normal people. Well, a lot of them start as lawyers, but not a lot of people. A lot of people start as normal people, and they go in there and then they spend a little bit of money, and then as time goes on, they spend more and more money, and they become more and more corrupt, because all that meets with them is special interests. You guys need to start developing relationships with them now, and make sure you get their phone numbers and get in contact with them, and go and make sure that you are the first impression, not the special interest. Because during the primaries, man, I remember some people were like there that night, like I didn't remember to talk to you guys until the next day. And sometimes I was too late. Like, you guys have got to get in there and make sure that you contact them and tell them what you're interested in. Warn them about Agenda 21. Let them know the things that you care about and make a relationship with them. Make plans. Tell them you're going to visit them in DC, or tell them you're going to visit them at the state legislature. Get a network going. Get something going. Make contact with your school board officials, all the people that you voted in. Like, start making a contact sheet and things like that, and do not let them feel isolated. That is like the number one thing the media definitely wants, is them to feel isolated, so they're off to the wolves with the special interests. Like, they're going to try and separate you from those officials as much as possible so that they become exactly like the old incumbents. You cannot let that happen. You cannot let that happen. And now we are on to the next part. This is what's so exciting. All right, here's what I found on the night of November 6th, and I didn't know this before. If you look at this, this is a map of the Senate. These were the Senate seats that were up and available. And it was a different graphic I can't find again. They're like wiping off all the graphics that were there beforehand. But it showed like which ones were red and which ones were blue, and then all these were white, which means they're white and they're totally up for grabs, like totally up for grabs, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, all of these are just like this. If you look at this, this is like a third of the Senate was up for grabs. A third of the Senate, which means the next term is 2/3. Like, Clean the GOP on the off season was a third. We have 2 years to get ready for 2/3. And not only that, but we have an easier road because we already know how to do it. We already have a movement going. But also, like, we know what's going to happen. We know that the GOP is suing. We know the GOP is going to come for you and like try and sue you off and is going to attack you. We know it's not a friendly party now. Like I said, Hillary Clinton has this like whole entire teaching you how to actually get qualified to be a candidate. So you've got like 2 years to be a candidate. You know, and you can announce a little bit later, like learn all the tricks and stuff like that. Learn all the tricks of how to become a candidate, how to be smart about it, learn from other people how to do it, learn all the qualifications, spend this next 2 years getting qualified. You don't have to run for DC Congress. That means leaving your town, but you can also run. And doctors, like, it's so interesting because in the beginning, it wasn't lawyers who did it. It was doctors. Doctors were the ones who did it. Doctors and scholars and educators, that's who used to be in Congress. Like that was the first couple hundred years of our Congress, was a whole swath of society where like other things, the lawyers is a new thing. That's a new thing. It's not a good sign. We want people who are ethical, who have sworn a duty to keep people healthy. That's who we want in Congress. So I think that it is a great opportunity for us to go ahead and get prepared for not just things that are in DC, but for all across America. Do you remember how many seats were up for election that didn't have anyone running against them? Because no one even thought that it was possible. Like, I'll show you, the same thing happened in the House. Look at this. Do you see that? Like a full third, 2/3 is going to be, this is going to be white next time. Next year, the House, it goes every 2 years, it rotates. So next year, these 2/3 are going to be total, like it's going to be completely up. So it's blue and red now, but not next time. Next time, it's up for grabs, just like this is white. There was a mix of blue and red here. Blue and red used to be, now it's white, totally up for grabs. And that's what went under the vote for Clean the GOP. Doing the same thing next time. So we've got a chance to get both 2/3 of the entire House cleaned out. But my point is that when we went to look to run in state legislatures, remember the state legislatures? And then even, especially in the South, I couldn't believe, like Kentucky, like there was no one running against any of these seats. No one even bothered. And we learned about Rand Paul. Like Rand Paul wasn't at all voting like people thought they were. Like Kentucky people were extremely broken because like Kentucky won by 33 points for Trump and then he didn't vote at all. Like it was like a 70% voting record. It was horrible, like completely voting with Democrats, right? It was awful. Oh my gosh. It was, and on the big issues, completely like was over here helping this side, not at all helping this side, right? So it's a whole big game and we are set and ready to run and we know what's coming this time. And I was just like, I understood why they funded, like I sat there staring at it and I understood why. And let me explain why that is. I understood why all of a sudden, remember when we heard from conservative speakers a couple months ago, we were hearing from conservative speakers. When we first started hearing from conservative speakers, they said this really interesting thing. They said, I don't get it. Before 2016, we used to go and speak on college campuses without any incident. No incident. 2016 hit and boom, all of a sudden, all these protests, which we now know is crowdsondemand.com. Look it up, crowdsondemand.com. Soros hires them out. We know Soros hires them out in Europe to overthrow democracies. So it's pretty easy to know, like, I mean, Crowds on Demand was started by someone who won Governor Jerry Brown's campaign. It was like their campaign manager out. And then from that successful bid, no one understood how Jerry Brown could win because he could barely speak. No one understood that at all. And now it makes sense. Like the guy who did Crowds on Demand ran the campaign. And we know the crowds were like, basically all the crowds were fake now. Everything walking on the media, you see a senator on the media and walking with the crowd. And it's like they all match up anyway. So moving on. So, I keep doing that. So I understand now why they poured so much money into this year and this midterm. Why is that? Because in 2020, it's a presidential election year. That's when everyone comes out that's going to make sure that their president comes in. Well, right now that president's running under the Republican Party. And remember, midterms usually has a small turnout. And so the presidential has a huge turnout. And they knew that huge turnout would most likely be red. And they were like, well, that 2/3 is most likely going to turn at least lean red. And they were like, well, let's go for the small turnout when it's blue, because if it leans red in 2020, that's it. Like that agenda will get done for the next like a lot will get done. And if we go for this little small turnout here, this is a possible, we can get an impeachment here and prevent all of this from happening. Because if there's no impeachment here, what will happen is that more of the agenda will be seen. A conservative agenda will be seen. And all the lies happening of like, oh, trickle down in economics doesn't work and democracy doesn't work. And all these other things like Agenda 21 will have more of a chance of being exposed. And all these different things that I fully believe, like finding out that illegal guns are the problem, not legal guns. And all these things that I've been learning, like those things slowly get exposed, and they didn't want any more of that happening because then their power dissolves. You know, their new party platform, their old party platform, you know, used to be, you know, Remember, 90% of political views are now the conservative movement, but it used to be like right in the middle. And so their old party platform was like a lot of what conservatives believe right now, right? But now that they've gone so far left, they're communist, they're scared of being wiped off. So they were like, that's it. We really have to get in during this midterm year or else we are screwed, because we can't let any more of this agenda go through, or else more lies and everything will be exposed. And that's why they went whole hog. That's why they went so whole hog with all the money, like Beto versus Ted Cruz, $80 million, like 18 billion went into all the crowds, all of the campaigns, all of the yelling and the screaming and the KKK and just all of it, the absolute insanity. And it just, all the college speakers got shut down. And I understand why that is now. Like they wanted as few voters going for this midterms as possible to get in there and maybe flip things while they could to prevent the next 6 years from happening, because that next 6 years could totally overthrow Agenda 21 and unravel the huge progress they made during the Obama years. They were really trying to protect that Agenda 21 huge track record, because remember, the establishment GOP was also on board with it. The healthcare was also on board with it. You talk to the establishment GOP people and what they said, we're on board with healthcare. We want the universal healthcare to continue. And they want all of the things, the 72 welfare programs, they all want that to continue, and the subsidies and all these things. They still want 2/3 of our government going out as just handouts, and so that eventually we have to break the government, and the government goes under, and then guess who will have to, some World Bank will have to come and save us, which is the UN. And that's what those subsidies are for. That's why 2/3 of the federal government is just handouts, because eventually we will break, and then China or the World Bank will have to save us, and then we go under, just like the World Bank of Scotland went under, you know? So that's what their end goal is. That's what their end game is. But so they really aimed for this. And what they also did is they eliminated right after the election 2016, January 2017 is when Facebook and Twitter totally eliminated all conservative speech, but it was really all any other kind of speech that talked anything other than communist, right? And that meant all people who were trying to run, independents, libertarians, classical liberals, anyone who tried to run, including new conservatives, anyone who tried to run who would run against these establishment GOP people, they didn't want them coming up either. They didn't want them preparing for those next 2 years. But now you guys are used to that environment. They didn't want them running in these midterm elections. So they really had to go hard. I understand all that money now, because they were like, all we have is this small 1/3 seats to go for, and we need them to be held by establishment GOP or Democrats. We cannot let them be filled by anyone else to make sure at least UN 21 stays in. We've at least got to keep our coalition in, their coalition. And, we now have to carry on our work and go for 2020, understanding what's going on, understanding the environment that we're in. And there's amazing ways we know how to do that now. We need to educate the public on UN 21. There's an amazing little video that does that right here. It's all about CO2, even though during the Roman era, it was way, way warmer than it is now. Like the earth has gone up and down, ice ages up and down. The Middle Ages were colder. The Roman ages were much, much warmer. There used to be 400 times more CO2 in the air, like couple million years ago. So we have to kind of bust that whole environmentalist thing, the legend that they kind of put all their money on. And if we do that, if we continue to go after Agenda 21 and educate the public and kind of use our other channels that we have, use our bumper stickers, but also I never thought of this. I used to never say write into your letters to the editor, because all the letters to the editor are astroturfing. But I didn't think about this. I was watching PewDiePie, and in order to get to 69 million viewers before a channel that's competing for him, his fans went out and did all these different posters up and down in their different countries, which is fun, like all these posters up and down the street. But they also took out ads in the paper. They took them out in the white pages and out in the middle of the paper, and they ran those. And I actually do that, like for my other business, for my programming, I run ads in the paper, right? So I never thought about that. And they're not that expensive. It's the newspaper business. You can run ads in the paper with those statistics. You can do that. You can actually start and not just the statistics, but you can start advertising for your campaign, for your ad, and you can run for the school board. And remember, there are going to be elections elections next year. So it's so exciting because now we have a chance to get out 2/3 and clean the GOP. And I know that there's a temptation to feel sad and to feel like there's defeat, but do I look defeated? I mean, I'm sorry, but my research reflects reality. You know what I mean? Like, I know this world is tempting to be like, ho, hum, drum, whoa, whoa, whoa. But, there has to be a time where you have to ask yourself who benefits. And the very last thing that I want to end on is I want to thank Styx for being the first one that I know of to actually say the actual statistics of 4-1 freedom fighters versus incumbents won in the primaries. Thank you very, very much. That's amazing. Of course, he said that they were Trumpers. He said the Trumpers beat 4-1. And I was like, and no, think again. Like, if you look at it, like, it wasn't Trumper, like they were libertarian to this, but I know there's like really nowhere, it didn't become a party. Like, there's not a Tea Party, there's not a Green Party. It's like, it was just from everywhere. And it's like, who do you use? Who do you use and what do you call them? And I'm just like, freedom fighters. Like, I call them freedom fighters because what united everyone, because no one actually chose. No one said like, here, and Trump went out there on all the stages and called out incumbents' names. So I'm like, can't really say that. Like, he didn't pound for any of the people that won the 4-1. Those were the ones he cheered for was this. So I'm like, no, freedom fighters. So I'm saying the 4-1 freedom fighters. So GOP of freedom fighters, baby. So that shows how much we want freedom of speech and democracy. And the way that you can see the backup of that is that in a very hidden thing, I posted this in my research, a very hidden thing was that the GOP put out an announcement after the primaries and said they were only going to put their funding behind 7 candidates for the DC races. 7. They didn't say I'm going to put them behind all of the races across DC, and this poor Schwett, which I'm very glad the GOP, finally Michigan GOP did this tweet for Schwett for governor. But you could tell, like, GOP did not give Schwett any fundings. Like, here he said this small staff, it is amazing photo, and he was with real people, and he's a real regular guy. But because of that, the GOP didn't give him any funding. He did it on his own. But like Ann Coulter has been screaming from the rooftop for years, apparently. I just learned that. Money doesn't win. Money doesn't win. Money doesn't win elections. And so remember that. Go out there. And so I wanted to say that Styx said that was the first one to say 4-1, but he said something else that I really, really want to encourage you guys to remember. Remember about AstroTurf. He said that he talks about listening to news from aggregate news sources. That's AstroTurf too. Like, really be careful. Like, they don't just put out AstroTurf in the mainstream media. They AstroTurf everything. They AstroTurf everything to the very nitty-gritty. They know YouTube's out there. They've been AstroTurfing YouTube. They've been AstroTurfing at the very, very smallest level. Everything out there is AstroTurf. You have to have sources on the background to fact check. You have to have people. Like, I'm always having to call my insiders to make sure a story. I get upset about stories and then I have to call around to find out if they're true or not. Like, I have to make sure. Like, you have to find out ways to fact check things before you just go reporting stories. Like, you really have to find out what's real on the ground because it's so easy to get caught up into that. So you have to be really, really careful. The reason I love Styx is because of his thoughts, like his ideas and his thoughts, and I love his analysis. But so many of the stories, like, I've gotten freaked out by his posting of the stories, and then I found out they're totally false. They're totally false. Some I can even tell by the title. I'm like, that's totally impossible. That is that cannot be possible. And then turns out, yeah, it's not possible. But it's it's easy. That's what they want you to believe. They want you to despair, and they put it out there on that AstroTurf site. So, and then he said something on the other side that was, and you can't believe Tucker Carlson because he's a rich millionaire up on the hill. Like all these, people out in DC and, they're rich elites and everything like that, but you still can't trust Tucker Carlson because he's a millionaire living on a skyriser. You can't buy it from him. Like, people say he's okay. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. And this is very, very, we have to be very, very careful here. That is the same reasoning that the socialists use. if you judge someone by their money, like they're rich and therefore they can't have good ideas, like, I think it's impressive, his ideas, despite the fact that he's wealthy. And who told us the fact that they're wealthy? He was the only one after the last election that came out and said, the DC elites, and he described what DC was like. He's the only one besides John Stossel who went out and described, but John Stossel, like, he may have, and I haven't found it yet, but John Stossel described the overlords of DC. But man, did Carlson really go into it and say, like, there are people leaving? He really exposed all that. He took the cue that American people are tired of it, and he really exposed all of it and said they hate us. We're all elites, like the politicians are elite, but the media are elites too. We live in $1 million homes. And he just said it. He's like, the media people are not news reporters on the ground anymore. You know, we're wealthy and we're living in houses and we're the elites just like the politicians are. And we're just like the lobbyists are no different than the politicians are no different than the news media. You know, when you have a guy that's willing to say all of that and admit all of that and actually gets in there, like, and has self-reflection, so, I mean, so that's it. Like, Donald Trump is a billionaire. He earned his way to the top as a billionaire. So boom, that's it. A millionaire cannot have good ideas. Then that's right. Then the elites are okay for saying, because you're poor, you have no good ideas. Walt Disney, he became a billionaire. He must be out. He should never run for politics. That's right. Walt Disney is out, you know, because he lived in a skyscraper because he was wealthy. Are you kidding? Like, the whole basis of America is that we judge people on their character and on their thoughts. Their character and their thoughts. And you know it by the fruits, right? That's what people always say. Like, you know it by their actions. And their actions speak louder than words. And you know, Tucker did a great job on his contract, so he doesn't have to do as many clips as CNN. He doesn't have to do, like, back-to-back clips of the leftists like Hannity does and all these other people do. And you watch their actual radio programs of Hannity or Laura Ingraham, and you find out that they actually want to be interviewing real people, but they don't get to on Fox. They have to do leftist programming from left to right. It's terrible. So I don't know, like, the corporate interests really, really control Fox, and I can't watch Fox anymore. It's like leftist programming everywhere. So I only watched it for a little while. I got into it a little bit, and like within like, what is it, 2 months of starting to share it on my channel, like little clips here and there. It wasn't very many people I ever even got a chance to watch, you know, and Waters and everything like that. Boom, it just went left like super fast, and I had to get out. And then I was like, well, Tucker isn't really changing. Like, why isn't Tucker changing? And then I found out why. He's gotten fired a lot. And, you know, isn't that interesting? Like, when you lose jobs a lot, you do get better at contracts. I have really, really learned that. Like, in our own lives, we've learned the same thing, and our friends have learned the same thing. You learn a lot when you lose a lot of jobs every time your contract gets better. So what are you going to say? Like, what? His world experience, like, knocks him out just because of the job he took, makes a lot of money? I really have a problem with that. When you say economic level, that's no different than Lenin's day and saying the bougie people. No, there are bougie people that, like, eat kids, and there are bougie people who fight for the little guy. Case in point, J.E. Du Bois. J.E. Du Bois was a millionaire brat kid. And he went to work for the Treasury Department. And if it were not for him, the Jews would still have been kept out, stuck in Germany, and Theodore Roosevelt never would have changed his policy around. He outed it. Are you telling me that that's it? He was the millionaire? He was the son of this entire timber industry? But, oh, no, all of his, all of his qualifications are gone because, he happened to have money. I think we should be really, really careful of doing that. I think we should really, really judge people on their, not like I share Tucker a ton, but I want you to really notice that Tucker is the only one who crossed over into YouTube and gave YouTube as much respect as it deserved. Name me another news. Did Don Lemon come to YouTube? Did Don Lemon go on the Young Turks? What? Name me a CNN host. Name me an MSNBC, name me a big TV personality who came on down to YouTube. Name me one. If they did, I missed it. Name me a big, huge #1 night show host that came to YouTube and made the rounds on every single YouTube show, showing that they know YouTube and they see it as an equal, like went to Politicon. Name me someone who did that. That shows us respect. Respect of mind and respect of our character and seeing us as equals. And you're going to shut it down because of his wealth? I don't understand that. I don't understand that. You just knock them out, oh, they're no different because they have wealth. Really? You can't, because let me just end it with this. Did you miss that his first job was fact checker? That really expensive job gives him the budget to check facts, which means go around the AstroTurf, which is something YouTube channels don't have a budget or ability to do. There are benefits to both sides. That's all I'm saying. I love you guys so much. Please give me a donation down below. Please enjoy Styx and please enjoy Tucker. Enjoy whoever you enjoy listening to, because we are the land of the free. As we go on in the next 2 years, please enjoy your freedoms. There is no such thing as hate speech. Apparently hate speech is offending anyone. Being an individual will offend a ton of people. That means culture exists. You need no culture on earth. We need to be one culture on earth, and we must all be the same in order for offense to leave. And that is not the way humans are. There is no one that has ever been made like me on earth. No one. In the history of man, there's no one been like me. And there's no one like you in the history of man. And things like that, PC and saying you shouldn't offend anyone, means you're not allowed to be that person. And I say, no way, man. Say everything you think when you want to think it, when you want to say it, and have fun with it. Let's go out there, baby. I love you guys. Congratulations on voting together and enjoying the polls together, united as one. I'm so proud. Love you guys. Clean the GOP. Coming in 2020! Woo!